Okay, fine. Now let's look at the reference types here. Fine. Reference types are arrays, classes, interfaces, enums, and you may even define annotations. Okay, fine. So, fine, we looked at primitive types. For all primitive types, we have got sizes. Fine. Fixed sizes for all the primitive types. Okay. Now, we are looking at it from a different perspective. These are all data types, right? Okay. Then we have variables we declare for a data type. We declare variables for a data type, and then we access whatever that object or the value is through the variable. Okay, fine. So now the main difference between primitive and the reference types, and this is also one of the differences where we have a difference, as I was mentioning that yes, C++ is different from other object oriented languages. Fine. Here, so if you are keeping that background of C++, there's a big difference here from all other modern programming languages which talk about objects. Because of course, when we are talking about reference type, we are always talking about objects, primitives and objects. Okay, when I say array, I have an object of the array type. It's an object. And it's all about objects. When we say reference type, it's all about objects. Okay, so main difference, let's see this. See, if from variables point of view, if I declare int a, fine, what happens? We have space allocated for integer type. We have, let's say that's a variable a, some space for the variable a. Fine, and this is where the value of the integer type will be stored. And this is where the value of the integer type will be stored. If I say, now we have a class, fine, class is a reference type. I'm just taking example of a reference. So if I say string s, yeah, you will have space for s. There will be some space allocated for the variable s. But what is that? Is that a string? Is there an object of the string? No. Fine. S is not an object. S is not an object. S is simply a reference. S is simply a reference which can refer to an object of the type string only. It won't be allowed to refer to a different type of object. But S is not the object, remember this. Fine, very different from C++ now. And all languages, all object oriented languages are like this. Okay, so if I assign S equals, suppose I put hello, right? I have a string, so that's my string object. Okay, that means what will be happening is, yes, I will have an object which has, that's an object of the string, and S refers to that object. Variable of a reference type is a reference. Any variable of a reference type is a reference to an object of that type. Fine, reference type, difference between primitive and reference from the point of view of, so primitives are the values itself. Fine, but when we say reference type, they are a variable. When I'm talking about variable, a variable of a reference type is always a reference. It's not the object. Okay, fine. Because when you come from C++ background, when you declare a variable, oh, that's my object. Here it's not the object. Fine. See, it's something like this. For example, there is a method available in the string class called length. Length is a method available on string class. So if I want to use that, fine. If you consider this like a pointer, fine. C++ would have something like this, right? In C++, if I say this is a pointer, it's like a pointer, right? In C++, your this thing would have been like this. You refer by, that's a pointer. So it's not this, fine. Here, in case of Java, no, it's like the member straight away. S dot length. But when I'm saying S dot length, invoke the method length on the object referred by S. It's simply that. Invoke the method length on the object which is being referred by S. So variables are not objects, they are references to objects. Fine. So if someone says S equals and he puts world, what would happen? If I say S equals this, what would happen? You would have another object which has got world, and S stops referring here, starts referring here. Okay. Assignment means change the reference. Assignment for reference type is about change reference to a different object. This is what we say, this is object reference model. Fine, which all object oriented languages except for C++ follows. Fine, we have object reference model. Yeah. Yeah.
So if I have no object, will be eligible for garbage collection.
Yeah. It's something which is not usable. S stops referring to that earlier object, and we have another object being referred by S.
So then in the memory it is like
Yeah.
like pointers. This S is something.
But this is variable, right? When we simply declare the way we declare.
Refers maybe to points.
Yes, you can think of it as, it's not exactly a pointer, okay? It's not a pointer because pointers are addresses. Pointers are addresses. If you make an assignment into a pointer, that means you are putting some address there. That's not possible here. See, there's so much of safety here, okay, compared to a pointer, that there are two things. S, it is referring to what? Object, not any memory location. You can't say S equal to and put some location there. Not like a pointer that you can put some value there, right? It's not something where you can put a value. You have to give some object or anything other than object. Okay, another point, it's not only that you have to give object, you have to give object of string only, no other kind of object. And I'll not refer to any other kind of object. Okay, fine. So there is a lot of safety compared to what is there in a pointer. Fine. Okay, so fine, this was just to clarify the difference between primitive types and a reference type. The meaning that reference is actually a reference. Reference type means references. Objects are separate.